Hello, everyone. Welcome back to A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. I'm Reverend Tomas, and thank you all for joining me here. We are in the midst of the very first chapter, in fact, the very first section of chapter 1, here, part 1 of the text of A Course in Miracles. Principles of Miracles. We've been looking at some of the many principles of miracles. In fact, Jesus lists 50 of them. And today we're going through 36 through 40. We've been doing them 5 at a time because there's a lot of information here, as you've discovered. These conversations are the foundational centerpiece of A Course in Miracles. They're quite dense and quite full of meaning, which you can say about every single sentence of this course. Every part, no matter how minute, contains the whole. This is one of the remarkable things about A Course in Miracles is there isn't any inconsistency. There's no inconsistency here. What we may perceive as incongruent, as weird, as messed up, and sometimes we might think outlandishly wrong. What we perceive as inconsistent and incongruent is our own perception. As we're going to see in the next few minutes, it's because we're perceiving selectively rather than totally, wholly, and truly. This is a theme for today. Selective perceptions, like we have selective hearing. If someone that we don't know tells us something, gives us a piece of advice, we may be inclined to listen to it. And then if our kids or our wife or our husband gives us the same advice, we just dismiss it. Right? We call it selective hearing. We're doing the same thing with perceiving. We're doing the same thing with the way we perceive the world and everyone in it, ourselves, everything. We're seeing what we want to see. Powerful, right? We're seeing what we want to see. So in this course, we're invited to change our mind. We're invited to want the peace of God. We're invited to want only the peace of God. If we want to see separation, boom, we see separation. And if we want to see the peace of God, what then do we see? Yeah. You are that powerful. Now, what we're doing here is we're perceiving selectively. We're seeing what we want to see. We're dumbing it down because we're limiting ourselves. It's okay if the ego doesn't want to hear this. By the very fact that you're watching a video series on A Course in Miracles, you can count on the fact that the ego feels threatened. It's on the run. And in fact, because it's fear itself, it always feels threatened. So count on some resistance. Count on it, right? Even if it doesn't come from this video or today or next week or even this month or this year, right? It's going to come eventually. It's part of the path. Happily, we have miracles, we have forgiveness, we have mighty companions, as this course puts it, our inner teacher. We have our guide or guides. There are many, many powerful resources available to us. as we set the ego aside a little bit at a time, if that's what it takes. So, hitting the highlights of paragraphs 36 through 40 here in Principles of Miracles. A miracle is an example of right thinking. Seeing things as they are, and we're learning quite clearly, right? Because we're falling on our face and stumbling all the time, getting wrapped up in psychodrama here, getting anxious and worried there, judging somebody here, judging someone there. It just kind of pops up because we've become so habituated to seeing ourselves as self-sustaining survival units, i.e. individual human beings, which we're not. Ego resists that one. Of course I'm a human being. My biological textbook says, and this screen says. Well, does it? The screen doesn't say you're a human being. Your biological textbook might. Yet here we are pursuing spiritual practice because somewhere at some point in time, you've had a thought and a conversation with yourself that there's got to be more to it than this. There's got to be another way. Yeah, there is. In fact, there are more than one. There's a lot of different options out there. There are so many. Miracle's an example of right thinking, and it's a correction. Jesus introduces miracles in order to break up erroneous perception. Erroneous perception is selective perception. It's seeing ourselves as individuals. It's seeing ourselves as a body, cut off, separate, competing for what we deem to be scarce resources, attacking one another physically and verbally, mentally, at all points in time, right? Even if you don't slug somebody physically, you might think that they deserve to be clocked. And wouldn't you like to be the one to deliver the blow? We all have these thoughts. Incidentally, when we see first person language here in the Course, it's Jesus that we're referring to. A bit of the history of this Course is that Jesus dictated this Course to a woman named Helen Schucman beginning in 1965. Helen was a PhD psychologist from Columbia University in New York, so world-class university, highly prestigious academic setting. She began to hear what she described as the voice, which dictated this Course to her. The voice would later go on to identify itself as Jesus. So when we see first-person language here in A Course in Miracles, incidentally, it's Jesus that introduces the miracle. So anytime you see the word I or me, right, those pronouns, it's Jesus we're talking about. And then he goes on here to talk about the Holy Spirit, which is wonderful. It's very, very interesting. The Holy Spirit is not some great mystery. When I was growing up in fundamentalist Sunday school at the Baptist Church, I spent about, 5 or 6 years sitting through some rather lengthy discussions where I was the kid that asked the questions that the adults couldn't answer. And I never got a satisfactory response to what is the Holy Spirit. At no point did anyone ever say it's your right mind. It's part of your own mind, your self with a capital S. Yeah, it is a part of your mind. That is the voice for God, the answer, that is the universal inspiration that helps you decide for truth, that is your inner teacher. Why is it your inner teacher? It's a part of your mind. Nobody ever said that to me. It wasn't until this course came along in my life that I discovered that one. It's a game changer, isn't it? The Holy Spirit, this part of your mind that speaks for God, the voice for God, that speaks for truth, this part of your mind recognizes both the ego's falsehoods and the truth. Recognizes them both without believing in the error, without believing in the illusion, without believing that you're a human being, without believing that you are your job or your social status or your gender or your ethnic makeup, your nationality, without believing in anything in that. You're not your tax bracket, right? The Holy Spirit looks on this and doesn't recognize the illusion, separates them by perceiving totally and not selectively. The Holy Spirit perceives totally and not selectively. There's no selective hearing here. The Holy Spirit sees what is, sees our illusions, and doesn't recognize them. The miracle is like turning on a light in a dark room. Think about this, right? This is always helpful. It's always a helpful visual. When we walk into a room, let's say we walk into a room at night and it's pitch black dark. Let's say the blinds or the curtains are shut and we can't see a thing, yet we fumble in the darkness for a light switch because we know somewhere deep down that there's a light switch. Flip. Boom. The room lights up. What happens to the darkness? It's gone. The miracle of forgiveness operates in this way. It is illuminating a dark room. What happens to the darkness? It is simply gone. It vanishes. It disappears. It is very much as though it were never there. It's as though it were never there. This is powerful. Our forgiveness is flipping on the light, flipping on the light. Now, we may wander back into a dark room, or we may temporarily shut that light off, but want to reach for the light switch again. Happens, right? But even though we may wander back into ego land, i.e. darkness, we can flip that light switch again. And having done it once and experienced the result of that will make you want to keep the thing on. Not only will it make you want to return to the switch and flip it back on, flip other switches on, it will make you want to keep them on. The more we do it, the more we recognize ourselves. The miracle dissolves error. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. And then we see here, right at the tail end of this short segment, paragraph 40, that the miracle helps us to recognize everyone as our brother, everyone as one with God, everyone. Yeah, very deep, very profound. This means your abusive ex. It does. It means your worst political enemy. Of course it does. Everyone as your brother, singular brother, the Son of God. This means historical tyrants, barbarous dictators, people who committed atrocities and mass murder as your brother, in addition to your hot, sexy lover, your beloved children or spouse, your beloved grandmother that loved you unconditionally and fed you cherry pie with ice cream every time you saw her. Everyone. No exceptions at all. There is one Son of God. There's one mind and one ego. Of spirit, ego, there's just oneness. The ego does not exist. This is the darkness that we're leaving to the side every time we extend love, every time we forgive. Everyone. This applies literally to everyone. So, important point about practicality here in the world, because I know people are we're wrapped up in, well, practically, I don't think I can forgive my ex because the hurt and the abuse is still going on, maybe, or it's still too near. Start with what you are capable of doing. Start with the forgiveness that you're called to do. Listen to your inner teacher. This course aims to get us in touch with our inner teacher because our inner teacher is part of our mind that speaks for the truth. Your inner teacher will direct your forgiveness. Great prayer is, please direct my forgiveness. And a great question to ask your inner teacher is, what should I do for him? What should I do for her? Because miracles look differently on the outside, don't they? An act of forgiveness looks different than someone else's act of forgiveness, or amongst your acts of forgiveness, forgiving someone or something one day is going to look differently than the next day, or even 5 minutes from now. You may use different words. You may perform different actions in the physical world. You may actually say something verbally. You may smile at someone, or you may simply think right-minded thoughts. The outer form is all that appears to differ. The content is exactly the same. All right. So we're going to continue here with the remaining 10 principles of miracles, and we're just going to proceed through the text. And right here on this video series, we've got a subscription button right here down in the corner. That's the little red arrow. I'd love to have you. So please, if this is something that you find is benefiting you on your spiritual journey, I'd love to have you subscribe. And thank you for all of you who have recently done that. And comments or questions are always welcome here. Feel welcome to reach out to me on social media. A number of you have, or right here on YouTube. And I will talk to you all very soon. And this is so much fun for me to share my experience with you. What I really appreciate and thank you for more than anything else is your own dedication and your own commitment to practice. All right. See you soon.